This is the webinar on flipping a house from A to Z. This is where we take you from start to finish on how we found a deal, how we negotiated the deal, the price we paid, cost of rehab, and the process in between, the paperwork, and then the amount of money we made in the end. So this house is located in Lakewood, California, and it was the ugliest house on the block. So this was found originally by driving for dollars. So driving around the neighborhood, saw this ugly house, and this picture does not do it justice because it actually looks worse than you can see there. And the next step, in the old days before Sal, we wouldn't just go up and knock on the door. We would actually send a mail piece. So here's the address. It's 6530 Glory White Avenue in Lakewood, 4 bedroom, 2 bath, 1,390 square feet. We found it originally. We were driving for dollars using Property Radar. This was a house that in that neighborhood we were farming while we were driving. We saw that it had issues. So, driving for dollars, again, is simply the process of driving targeted areas with the intent of locating distressed properties. Again, we're going to go ahead and show you things that we look for: code enforcement notes, overgrown grass, piled up newspaper, and boarded up windows. And along those things, we're also just looking for things that show wear and tear in a house, where there's tiles missing on the roof, or shingles rather, could be tiles as well, older windows, asphalt driveways, overgrown grass, peeling paint. You can just tell that it's just has not been maintained. And so with that, that's when we want to find out why. We want to inquire. So in pulling up the Property Radar report, you can see that this house was built in 1954, 4 bedroom, 2 bath. And if we look over here, we can see that the loan balance, according to Property Radar, was $80,000 with an estimated value of $455,000. Owner occupied, no. So it's showing that this would be a rental property. So now our job is to figure out, where do we send the mail piece? So it's in a trust. So you just never know what you're going to get. But there's the address, Camarillo, California. So we're driving for dollars. This is the house we see, ugliest house on the block. And then we do our homework, which is, now I find out on Property Radar what the situation is, has lots of equity. You see the underlying amount there. According to Property Radar, there was 375,000. So I have some room to work with a house that's dilapidated. But now I got to find the phone number for whoever is at that address on the Lacey Trust. So if you can't do that, which at the time we weren't, we just sent a letter that looks similar to this. Okay. It was a yellow letter with a picture on it. And that's basically what allowed us to find this. So, one thing I want to reemphasize with direct marketing, I don't believe the marketing piece is all that important. I think it's getting the message to the right person, but you have to understand that there's statistics involved. And so we know on that first mailing that there's only a 2% success rate. So when you send your first letter, almost like it's a waste of money. Second one, 4%. Third one, 6%. And then all of a sudden, the odds start to change that by the fifth one, there's an 81% chance of success within that farm. Now, obviously, the statistics vary. Some of you out there may go, well, I've been farming an area and I've been sending letters, and I sent 7 letters and I didn't get a response. And sometimes that's the way it is. Now, I'm sitting here telling you now that when that letter was sent, there was a response within 3 days. So that was the very first letter sent to that farm, and that person called. Very fortunate. So you get the call, and immediately they want to know, and just like this, they want to know what you're willing to pay for the house. So we run our formula. Our formula, as you know, is 75% of the after repair value minus rehab cost is our MAO, or maximum allowable offer. So if we run our numbers on Glory White, it's 1,390 square feet. And so we know after we comp it that the value is 560. We take 75% of that value. That's 420,000. Rule of thumb, $45 per square foot. And so if you do that, you're going to get a rehab cost of about almost $63,000. And you back that out of the 75% value. So that means this house at 1,390 square feet is a 4 bedroom, 2 bath in a great neighborhood in Lakewood, that we'd be picking it up for $357,000. I know people probably think that that's ridiculous. How do you do it? It's just finding the right person in the right situation. So they called us, wanted to know the offer. Right away, you have to set the appointment, because usually you're not the only one they're calling. and they'll call bandit signs when it's time to sell. They'll talk to realtors, they'll call the bandit signs, like I said, they'll answer these letters. And this is obviously an absentee owner. So we weren't the only person mailing at this time. The key is return the phone call. A lot of people put out marketing pieces and never return a call because you have the competition and you have these aggressive agents that are going to lie to them and tell them that their house is worth way more than it is. And you have to know that you're going to be required to overcome objections. It's just part of the process. They're going to obviously feel like their house is worth more. As an investor, you're trying to steal the house from out from under us. And that's why, with regards to us, that's why those options are so very important. So you have to bring support. So we scheduled the meeting and it was within a couple or a couple of days. So the first meeting actually was with the woman living in the house that turned out to be one of the sisters, one of the trustees. Now, the story went like this. She was kind of the sister that married and divorced, raised her children by herself, didn't have a lot of money. She was a caregiver for elderly. She didn't have the money to keep the house up. And so there were holes in the ceiling. There wasn't a lot of furniture. They lived just minimally. I mean, there wasn't a lot in that house. So we met with her for about 3 hours, built rapport, and she liked us enough to say, hey, you know what? Next is you have to meet my sisters and their husbands. And so you have to bring support. So did some work. This is how we used to comp properties with Redfin. Redfin was great because you could actually comp a property and it would have pictures that you could scroll through. Now, the lower end properties, those are off market. They weren't on the MLS, and that's why there's not pictures. These are just properties that were sold to investors. As you can see here, the value we're able to come up with on the low end was 304,000. Our MAO was 357,000. So that's a big difference. But I need to bring support and let them know, hey, properties that investors are buying are being bought in the low 300s. All right, so we find out through our meeting that the homeowner owes $78,000 and that there's three trustees. We are prepared to make an all cash offer in the amount of $357,550 and close in 14 days. So we also want to show them in our paperwork how much money they're going to get. And so in my conversation with the sister, she had given away that, hey, each of these sisters would like to walk away with $100,000. Basically, what happened is the woman living there, she'd lived there all that, this is a house that was in the family they were raised in. And the other two sisters had retired and they were ready to enjoy their retirement, go on some trips, enjoy vacation. And the sister living in the house, she had lived there rent free. And so it was just one of those times where, you know what, it's time. And she was okay with it. Her kids were adults and she was ready to go get an apartment. So in the pre-analysis, we were able to pick it up at the 357 price and sell for 560. That was going to be an $84,000 profit if it was completed in 6 months. You can see the holding cost there. That is generally we're using hard money and gap money. Figured 60,000 for the rehab, selling costs we'd sell ourselves, buying costs, everything's built in. So I come prepared and I meet the two sisters and their husbands at Mimi's Cafe. They drove all the way from Camarillo, and one had lived even further away. And so sit down with them, and right away, the husband is a retired sheriff, LA County Sheriff, and he grilled me a little bit. He asked me a lot of questions, but he said, you know what? I have already checked you out and you come up clean. I think the conversation from that point went to coaching baseball because the guy happened to love baseball. So that's something we had in common. And so right away, I knew the toughest guy in the room I was past him. And then there was one of the sisters that never, ever showed any expression. She asked hard questions, never showed expression, but I was able to answer them. In that meeting, they shared with me that the realtor that they had talked to said that they could at least get $420,000 in that condition. And I said, you know what? That might be true. That might be true, but there's going to be a lot of people coming in and out. With our situation, we're going to help the sister that's there move. And her name was Pam. So we were going to help Pam move, and we're going to make you a fair offer based on the condition of the house. And right away, we went into, if money is the issue, we can actually partner with you. So even though this was done quite a while ago, we were doing the price lift offer then. And they contemplated it. I said, if money's an issue, then we will partner. We'll bring in the money and we'll work with you. They thought about it. They considered it. The sister with no expression kind of lightened up because she could see that I wasn't greedy. And they said, you know what? We've watched those shows on TV. There's always something lurking behind the walls. We'll just take the cash, but we need you to come up a bit. Remember, my offer was $357,000. And so this is where sometimes you got to wiggle a little bit. I knew the realtor was at 420. I knew that that was possible because this is when the market's really heating up. And so we settled after a little bit of back and forth, arm wrestling. And it's a negotiation. It gets a little uncomfortable because you can't budge because you know you can't break the rules. And so again, I would have loved to have made the $84,000 on this, but I knew if I came up that I had to minimize my profits. So we settled at $385,000. So I went up almost $30,000 on my offer price. Now, if you do the math, I was up at 84 or something like that. So that means I'm only going to net 50 if this house sells for 560 and I can stay within the parameters on the rehab costs. They're happy. They signed the paperwork right there and we have a deal. And it only cost me $33.74 at Mimi's for breakfast. And I thought that was really cool. So I had to change my numbers. So at a 560 price with that rehab and some holding costs there, I was only going to net about 56,000 if I could get it done in the 6 months. So now speed is important, and you're hoping and praying that there's not any major issues you didn't catch in your inspection, because I had met Pam at the house and walked the property. So contract signed. And if you look at this, and again, this is almost 2 years ago now. If you look at this, offers 385, probably could have gotten away with $3,000. Sometimes, and I'm talking about the deposit here. You know, I paid five. I happen to have the money, and I think sometimes they'll question you on that, especially if they have if they have a realtor in their ear. The realtor's going to say, "Oh, 3%." So at 3%, I would have been up around 12 grand, give or take. But here, I was able to put 5,000 and make the offer happen. So once that contract is signed, the race is on because you have to open escrow with your earnest money deposit. That's first. You need to get your investors lined up and get them their investor packets and make sure you have money to close in that 14 days. You got to do all your inspections, do all your due diligence, check for any violations, building and safety, because that house in that condition, I thought there might be some issues. So these are all steps in the process. So at building safety, there's three things you generally want to check for. You want to check for violations. You want to make sure. Now, in looking at this house, this originally was a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, and they had added on to the back. And I could see that when I inspected the house. So then you want to check for certificate of occupancy. Key to them is you want them to show, or you want to show them right away that you are able to put in your earnest money deposit. So I asked escrow, this is when I was using Pure Logic, I asked them for a receipt of the 5,000 so I could send the sellers a copy. Great thing about this is I was able to use my own escrow and my own title because the homeowner didn't know. And in this particular situation, one side of escrow is free. So I got to get away with one on that one. This is what the investor packet looks like. All right. You can see the profitability. If you look on the right-hand side, it shows a map, it shows a picture, and an instant flip would have been 84, but that's not the case. But if we go out 6 months down here, you can see that the profit would dip down to about $56,000, $57,000 and go up from there. So next steps. You get an opening package from escrow. The sellers get an opening package and they get disclosures that they have to fill out. And they need to return those disclosures to you very quickly because you have an accelerated escrow. As an LLC or as a corporation specifically, you need to have a corporate resolution stating that your members of the corporation met and that they agree that they're going to buy the property located at that address. You have to have an official meeting, and that needs to get filed. And the one thing a lot of people forget is you have to order insurance. If you don't have insurance and you get a hard money loan, they will not fund it in the end. And oftentimes something people forget about. So this is the opening package. You can kind of see how this looks. Complete and full sign and return. Statement of information, preliminary change of ownership, insurance information request, vesting. They want to know how the vesting should read. Pretty simple stuff. So escrow paperwork gets done. Then there's this thing called the corporate resolution that I spoke about. Let's see what that looks like. So I'm the sole owner of Fortune Weavers. So president of Fortune Weavers, organized and existing under the laws of the state of California and having its principal place of business at 16560 Harbor Boulevard. You can see that certificate that the following is true on that date that we resolve that the corporation will purchase the property located at 6530 Glory White Street in Lakewood. And so if you see here, this is very important. I was able to, and if you look, they actually accepted this. If you look at the bottom two address or the two dates, it actually says 18 instead of 15. So obviously had some issues that day. I didn't see that. So that's something I should probably try to go back and change to make sure I'm compliant. But once in a while that happens, you mix up the numbers. So you can see it goes 7, 18, 15, 7, 18, 15, 7, 15, 18. So getting ahead of myself there. But that's basically what you do for a corporate resolution. And you need this. Title will require it before you can buy the property if you're a corporation. So that's done. It's an important step. And you want to order your insurance. So we use Farmers Insurance and we use Tim Weidenkeller. Been great for us. I can just say, hey, here's the address. I need the standard. And he sends the copy, which is below, of the certificate of insurance over to our hard money lender because they're going to require that through the process. So now we have all three key things that are important, which is escrow, corporate resolution, and insurance. Then we got to find the money. So we need $480,000 to make this deal happen. The easiest way for us, especially with our investors, we have a lot of gap investors that want to put their money to work. We basically, they don't, a lot of them don't have 480,000 invested with us, but what they do have is 300,000, which can be the gap. So we just go with a hard money loan on the first. And it's usually, in most cases, 80% of purchase price. But here, so if you look at purchase price is 385, 280 is just 80% of that. 2 points plus $500 appraisal, 700 processing is what we get charged. It's a 12-month note. That's very important. You do not want to do a 6-month note in case it extends. And then we need a gap investor for the other monies in order for closing costs, points, all the appraisal fee and all that, and the rehab costs and the monthly payments. That all gets factored into that gap. So if you look at it, 280 obviously isn't going to buy it. So the hard money lender is going to require at least 20% down. So 20% down of the 385,000 is basically just under 80,000 that we would have to put down. Plus you have the points, and that leaves us with, you're looking at $120,000 to do everything else with. We make sure for the gap investor, we have an investor packet that goes out and promissory note and a deed of trust. And the deed of trust is what gets recorded that secures the promissory note and secures the principal that the investor has in the property. So this is the response from our hard money lender, and Michael is our appraiser. Loan amount 980, interest rate 9.99%, 2 points, 12 months, appraisal 495. Processing was lower than I thought. They were giving me a little bit of a deal, and that's how that went. And here's the loan application, 280,000, 12 months. And then you look at this, the current value of the property is around 420 because that's what the realtor said. Our purchase price is 385, ARV 550-ish. You just want to be conservative with hard money lenders. You start overdoing it and they start to think that you don't know what you're doing. And you say, I plan on doing a complete rehab. We'll be updating plumbing, electrical, exterior paint, interior paint, new flooring, updated kitchen with granite counters and new cabinets and fixtures, updated bathrooms. Kind of tell them what you're going to do. Share your experience, how long you've been doing this, 2004. Okay. And you just kind of say what you've been up to. All right. So hard money lender will want a signed contract. They want an executed contract before they'll ever move forward. And they want to see the preliminary title report, which we call a prelim, to see if there's any encumbrances or liens on that property that are going to cloud title or prevent them from wanting to lend on the property. Here's the note secured by deed of trust. This is the promissory note for $200,000. That was our investor. And if you look here, he's investing $200,000 at 12%. Starts August 1st, 2015, goes in a year. His monthly payment is $2,000 payable at the end of the process when we sell the property. Here's what a deed of trust looks like. This secures that investor. The key here is the principal sum of $200,000 is recorded and it will be a lien recorded against this property. Then you got to bring in your contractors. You got to get your bids. Now we're fortunate now to have Scott Asali because he takes care of us, makes this job much easier. But if you've ever heard me talk about contractors in general, they have not been my friend. They have found ways to steal money, to cost money, to prolong projects. I've had experience where one walked with $63,000. Our neighbors over at home office, they had someone walk with $190,000 in their construction company by a contractor. You want to make them sign your contract and outline everything you can possibly think of in your scope of work. Because anything you leave out, they can say, oh, well, you didn't have it in the contract, and they can charge you for it. Make sure you get permits. Okay. And make sure the garbage bin is there on day one. And that just means we're starting demo. And it's also important, you want to pay in 5 to 6 draws. You do not want to pay half up front and half when it's done. And a lot of contractors will try to get you to do that. You want to pay in several draws as the work gets completed. And you want to make sure they sign lien releases every time you pay them a draw so that they can't record a mechanics lien against you for any amount. The most important lesson I've learned along the way, make sure there's money at the end so that they have to finish, because most contractors love the beginning phase. There's lots of money. They get in, they got all their guys working. But towards the end, a lot of times they'll get tired of the project because it's the finish work. It's all the cleanup and it's all the fine details. It's slow, it's tedious, and it's costly for them. And so you'll see them not show up. They'll start to slow down. That's why it's important to have kind of a carrot at the end of the stick at the end. On this particular property, this was our architect, and this is when we paid him after he had done his work. He had done the blueprints for us. Here is the permits, $1,833. And as you can see here, it took us a while to actually close the deal, and I left that out. When we got our prelim, there was an extra trustee. There was a brother. There's 3 sisters that we saw in our paperwork, and lo and behold, there was the druggy brother that they had bought out a long time ago, and he showed up on the prelim, and he never reconveyed the promissory note. So what that means is, even though they paid him, the attorney that was involved never released the promissory note or the deed of trust. So it still showed a recorded lien against the property. And it took us quite a while to actually get that resolved. We did. And that's why you're seeing dates in October versus when we actually started this, which is July. And sometimes that happens. All right. So permits, $1,833. And about midway through the project, I like to get ready to start marketing it, let people know what we're doing. And for this one, we actually put a for sale by owner sign in the front yard, just about a little past midway through. And if you have a realtor, obviously you're going to want them to do it, or you have a sign that says coming soon, things like that. For sale by owner sign. And then so I'll kind of share how this worked. So we put the for sale by owner sign and we got multiple offers. But the people that came in did not come directly to us. They actually had representation. So we were hoping that we could not, or that we didn't have to pay a buyer's agent, but they came with representation and that was okay. So we went ahead and okayed a 2.5% commission to the buyer's agent, even though we listed this for sale by owner. And we had multiple offers and we got to get them to compete against each other. Thinking we were going to make 560, it actually drove the price up. And I'll show you that in a bit. Right away, once you have an accepted offer, you want them to put their EMD in and open escrow. And then as the seller, you have to fill out disclosures. Generally, you want to get that done in the first 7 days. Then the buyer has all their inspections. We do termite, and we provide the new owner a warranty for the first year. So if anything goes wrong, anything that we installed doesn't work, that they have insurance basically that's going to come in and fix it for a low fee. Again, when you did a corporate resolution to buy the property, in the end, you have to do a corporate resolution stating that the company is selling the property and everybody's in agreement. So I was in agreement that I, the president and the vice president and the secretary and all those things, was willing to sell the property. And then you get basically there's liens against the property for the hard money loan and your private investor, and they need what's called a reconveyance package. They fill out the paperwork and they match it to the promissory note. So that math is done and they they hand that to escrow and it shows escrow how much they're going to get paid back. You're going to want to stay on this because escrow does not judge or do anything that's they're not instructed to. So if your investor says, you owe them a bunch of money and they put that on the reconveyance, escrow is going to pay it. So you have to check that thing. You have to check that paperwork and make sure it lines up with what's promised in the promissory note. So sale price was actually, instead of 560, we got it up to 575. This is actually kind of where we were. We actually got this done in 5 months. So the net profit happened to be higher. And so that was really nice. So we ended up with over a $70,000 profit as the market continued to increase. Not bad. Can you imagine if we had bought this at $357,000 like we originally wanted? This would have been a $100,000 profit. So I'm going to try to go ahead and pause sharing here, and I'm going to share some of the pictures. Let's see if we can do that now. This is literally day one. We had the bin in the yard. We ripped up the driveway right away, day one. And I'll kind of walk you through this process a little bit. This is what the kitchen looked like. That's the dining room. And I want you to pay attention. So because of what we did in the back, we actually created a slider where that window is, and that was our entrance into the backyard. We created a landing there. So these are the two chairs that she owned and sat in, and you can tell they're pretty dirty, but she was a sweet lady. The bathroom. Old windows. Now this hallway is behind the kitchen. We actually wiped this out and created a master bath and master walk-in closet with that hallway. There's a second bathroom. Now this is the addition they did, and the interesting thing is there's actually a load-bearing beam right above that opening in the closet that we could not get rid of, and you'll see that hopefully in future pictures here. Chair in one of the bedrooms. So that's where the back door used to be. This is actually the hallway that we eliminated. And so that's where the laundry was. And so we had to get creative and utilize that space because there's a bedroom right behind it. So that's the master bedroom. So we generally don't do much to backyards. So you'll see when this is finished that we just clean it up and we create a blank slate for the new buyer to create their own vision in the backyard. So we knew we had to open it up the wall between the kitchen and the dining room to create the open concept. So this is us now framing our walk-in closet and our new master bath where the hallway used to be. And you can see the sunlight coming in from where the back door was. We also had to replace the main water line. And much cheaper to have a daily laborer do it than to hire a plumber. This is all the wiring for the recessed lights. And you want to make sure a contractor draws those lines and actually gets those lights in the center, because if he doesn't, you'll see them offline. It makes the whole room look funny. Now here's that beam in that bedroom that is above the closet that we had to leave. So as you can see, we rewired the whole house. There's new outlets every 8 feet, new wires coming out of the ceiling. So that is one of the first steps. So electrical, plumbing, mechanical, and framing. This is all the old galvanized plumbing. And this is the house with new windows and the new color of paint. New laundry room where the old bathroom was. I really like the recessed laundry just because the pipes sticking out of the wall are dangerous, and that way the drain is actually in that recessed box. This is where they're building the cabinets for the kitchen. Now, Title 24 states that those lights, those recessed lights, need to be LEDs. The laundry room with the cabinets. This is the Subway backsplash light we like to install in all of our kitchens with the white shaker cabinets and the gray quartz. Matching bathroom vanity, low flush toilet. Really like the undermount sink with the new laminate flooring. Painted the door burgundy. And as you can see over here, that's where we put tape where we need fixes, we need touch-ups. So what a difference when you open up those walls. And so now you have a slider, and as you can see, he's building a landing out there. Nice and clean. Front yard with all the sod. There's a for sale by owner sign. It's got a new driveway. Got our appliances. And that's really the finished project. All right, we're going to open this up for questions. I just wanted you to see how that worked. Not bad, making $75,000. And that took us about 5 months. And we didn't even have to put it on the MLS. So I'm going to move this into question or Q&A mode. If you have any questions, go ahead and tap on that on your phone or your computer. Dan, I see that you raised your hand. Go ahead and ask the question in the Q&A box by typing it in. Okay, so the question is this: do you have a prepayment penalty on the notes? No. Some hard money lenders will do a prepayment penalty within 3 months. We don't use those hard money lenders, and we don't use those on our promissory notes. All right, any other questions? All right, well, that concludes our webinar on flipping a house from A to C. Hopefully you gained some insight, and we will see you next week. Have a good night.